Hello, this is the AwkwardGM Corbin. I hope everyone is doing well this evening. Oh, and I've got some issues going on with the stream. That's fine. It's a little bit of an awkward stream, as always. Overlay window capture is before that. So fix that. Oh, and I lost the at the gates up here. I definitely do apologize for the technical difficulties. I forgot to do a few things before I got set up here, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit. But hello, I am the Awkward GM Corbin. I hope you can hear me all in the chat. If you are unfamiliar with this show, that is perfectly fine because this is the first episode of At the Gates, New Game Plus, where I'm going to be trying to do a new At the Gates campaign session or planning session, as it were. I did the one shot of the At the Gates Ash Can back in a couple of weeks ago now, but in TV land it was quote unquote recently, or streaming land rather, showing my age. In any case, At the Gates is a fantasy RPG using the story path system. Is one of the first two games that is a fantasy setting or wholly fantasy setting. The other being The World Below. You could say, I think it's Scion is also kind of a fantasy setting, though it is a urban mythology game, as I like to call it. In any case, I would probably say I've spent a lot of time preparing this for a bit now. I do have I actually didn't write down the world. That's terrible of me. I'm already falling behind. But this is I don't like fantasy games, but At the Gates really just sort of pushed it for me. So my plan is to create this campaign, possibly run it on the stream if and when I'm done with this. Maybe if I'm lucky, by the time I'm done planning this, it'll be up on Drive Through RPG Storypath Nexus, and I'll be able to post this stuff here. I do have to make sure that I have the manuscripts ready. I'm debating between showing the manuscripts or not on stream just because they're not really that pretty to look at. They're just text files, but there's a lot of information that you'll find in them that will help expand on the world. I will read them out a little bit, I think. Not to an extent that you can get by without grabbing them, I would say. So right now I don't have players. I don't have player characters to work with. Right now I'm just working on the campaign lore and background. The setting, and I'll read the introduction to the manuscript for the moment because that's kind of it'll give you a sense of what the world is. Magic suffuses everything in the world of Gaia, keeping a delicate balance. Recently, a danger from a plane of existence outside of this world called the Void has threatened the very fabric of reality. On the continent of Everend, 7 nations vie for resources and influence in an uneasy peace. A year ago, in an explosive demonstration of power, one nation called forth demons from the Void, flattening a mountain to invade their neighbor. Now all nations fear for their safety against such power and rush to gain demonic magic for themselves. As the nations struggle, common folk continue their daily lives amid uncertainty of incomprehensible power and brutal war. People with power oppress those without in the name of safety and defending their way of life, all while magic collides with the void-tainted landscape to create dangerous beasts who threaten everyone's safety. Now, if you're listening You feel free to do other things while you listen. This is what another person, a streamer, has said is second screen content. If you want to know more about the setting, please just put up a chat in the description here. If you have any questions about how I run things, you can too as well. The thing that I like to do whenever I start a campaign is I always like to have this campaign diary. Now, if anyone is familiar with a certain ampersand game system, there was a article that came out not too long after the end of their fourth edition where Chris Perkins, game designer, put out his guide to creating a campaign world, and he was planning his fifth edition campaign. And so he basically showed his notes, and I took the notes myself and I changed them around a little bit. But essentially the framework is thus. You have your campaign world name, which is, in this case, Everend. And now my cursor has disappeared, which sometimes happens while I stream. If I right-click, that has not fixed it. I hate that so much. Close window. Close window. It'll come back eventually. If I do that, there we go. I hope that didn't just like cause a glitch on people's screens as I did that. Anyway. So we have Everend as the, is actually the continent. The Gaia is the actual world. But you have the overall summary, the setting, the leadership, the major plot points, if you will. You can do a brief timeline of events. There's usually a special campaign event where the overall plot revolves around. In this case, it is going to be the, at least for my game, it is going to be the start of the Demon Wars. I'll say Demon Wars for the moment, but it's going to be the war between the two of the nations. Calendar cycle, I'm not going to be focusing on right now. That one is kind of a holdover from the diary stuff that Chris Perkins does. Basically, he would create his own setting of date time. So if you were playing in his campaign, you would actually the series events would happen chronologically in like, oh, you guys take a rest. Well, this calendar date changes, and now it's the festival of X thing happening. You could do a really good Chrono Trigger game with this, in my opinion. I really like checking. I really like the idea of setting up a campaign with this. Calendar cycle I'm going to leave empty for the moment, but people and factions, I do have a lot of the nations written down here. These are sort of the overall races or nationalities, rather, of the At the Gates setting. So as you see, I have it sit down as Gaia is the world, then we have Everend, which is the continent, and then we have the Caperonites, who are the people of the northernmost continent of Everend. They are usually goat or mole people. From what I'm told, At the Gates is all human, but some people do have animal-like traits when they're born. It's not genetic. It has something to do with the magic of the world. So you can have someone who is a goat person who was born of two normal humans. You can have two goat people having a normal human as a kid. It seems like it's part of the magic of the world. I did write down a little bit of like the environment up in Capernite is mountainous and cold. So for me, like I can do some improv, being like, okay, these people are Capernites, they're covered in furs or whatnot. Their culture, I did write 4 little things about them, which is that they are warlike, but this is actually what other people see them as. But normally they're hardy, proud, and then they are grouped into clans, which I need to do a little bit more detail into how the cultures are for these various groups, because the clans make sense for the Capernites, but the other groups, as we get further down, you'll notice that they don't have clans. They have families or even just political parties, which is interesting for some of them. So you can kind of like pick and choose where you want to start. If you want like a Skyrim-y type start, I think Capernite would be a good place to do it. I'm kind of between where I want to start with, but I do want to do a globe-trotting adventure where all the player characters are able to see the different parts of the world. And as I get further into the planning, you'll find that I have stuff like I want to have my players, as far as the plot goes, do a similar like Final Fantasy's type plot of gathering certain MacGuffins to try and help stop this crisis that's occurring. But even though I have this planned out as of like, these are the MacGuffins you need, the players can go against that. I'm not going to railroad them into getting those things. It'll just be like, oh, there's a prophecy or something along those lines. So a couple of other things other than like the culture, I do have listed out like the capital. So Paris is the capital of Capernite. Government is led by the Council of Khans, who are also led by the All Khan, and this All Khan beard is the name of the person. It is not just the beards of the All Khans are leading them. No, it's they are not sentient beards. They are goat people, or at least one of them is. All Khan beard is from what I've read, is basically he was head of the Ice Horn clan, which I have written down here. And essentially he gathered all the other clans together under one Khan, him, in order to basically unite the country and lead it onto a sort of golden age, as it were. Another thing that I wanted to keep track of is actually testing. So things about the Capernites are they see any argument as needing to have a resolution, and that resolution usually is testing, which is the act of having a contest in either to win the argument. Now, this can be as simple as a drinking contest or arm wrestling, or it can be even more bloody, as in like a fight to the death if both parties agree. Now, it's key that both parties agree. As far as I've read, you essentially set the ground rules for this testing, and if you defy the testing, you are seen as dishonorable and are not allowed back into the area. That's what I get from a cursory look at the manuscript I did earlier in the week, but that's kind of where I'm at for the most part as far as like their culture goes. Another thing I wanted to make sure that I knew about was their daemon research. Daemon research is something that you'll find across all the different nations is slightly different. The Capernites are actively researching how to use daemons in combat and summon them and everything, and they're slightly more advanced in the like process than other countries because they are right next to a border known as the Outlands, which are some of the Outlands appear in countries, but the biggest ones that have existed for the longest period of time are up north and out and down south in the nation. There is a map that Danielle, the lead developer, did put up on Discord. It is not a it is not a great map. It is not the final map as it were. Let's see if I can find it. Um, I can't search. Oh, I can't search because I'm in. If I can look for the map. I need to remember this map. Awesome. Corbin, past Corbin was a good person. So I'll put the map in here right now. So the map goes into my map section. I referred to it as essentially like fantasy United States, where the Eves is Manhattan Island. This is just a work in progress map, and I'll make a map. I'll put that in there just so that you all in Streamland know that this isn't the final map. Um, Essentially, though, you have the Outlands up top, you have Capernite right there, and then you have the other nations on the side here, and then you have Outlands at the bottom where Richimari is. Lepardonia is not actually Lepardonia. It is. I will have to edit that. Dee did say that it got renamed to um, Ordonia. Ordonia. So what I would do is I just open up Paint. I copied and pasted it into Paint, and I'm just going to blank out the name and write it in there using text. Oh, I have to do fill. That's it. Okay. In any case, this is the type of thing I would give. This is the type of thing I would give to my players when I run a game. I would like make sure that they know this is where everything is. In some cases, and I've told some people previous to this on the Discord, I actually did use a map of New Zealand for my map, which my players immediately sussed out for me. Like, that looks like New Zealand, Corbin. Did you just flip it? And I totally did just flip it. Okay. So we have the various nations here. Other stuff I have, aside from Daemon Research, which all the different countries have different Daemon Researches, I have relationships. And these are the major relationships that I found from reading the first part of the manuscript. I believe it was like the first page of it, even. And now I lost my cursor again. Great. In any case, the relationship between Capernite and Ardonia is uneasy because they both share a border. The southern Capernite border is with Ordonia. And if you were playing the Ashcan version of At the Gates, which has an introductory adventure, you'll see that as part of the one of the main features of the game, of that session, or key points of that session is making sure that the Oridonian there's someone who is trying to affect that situation there. That was a perfect way to explain that. No. There's someone in that mission in the Ashcan that is trying to affect the Ordonian and Capernite relationship. Which slight spoiler, I guess, is that the Capernites are made a deal with. Actually, I have it here listed in the notable events. The Arable Crown affair. The northern part of Ordonia, there's a place called the Arable Crown, and Capernite said, "Hey, we'll help you with your crop blight that you have. In exchange, we want to get this bit of land called the Arable Crown." The Ordonians believe that the Cavernites actually caused the blight somehow, and as such didn't take the deal. But the Cavernites have this thing called testing, and that meant that they had to basically say, well, we're in an argument right now, and if you aren't able to defend your land properly, we'll take it by force. So there you have a conflict that you can take into your game if you wish. Other things other than the relationships, because they have an alliance with another country. They also have open war with another country. I have notable people. Tristan Beard, who is the Alcon and leader of the Icehorn clan. I also made note that he is a goat man and that he uses he, him pronouns. Just because some people's names can be very difficult to discern gender for me, but also I want to make sure that the players know this is how you should refer to this person, especially when someone has a name that may sound feminine but uses he him pronouns depending, or is gender neutral and they use like she her pronouns or he him pronouns depending. It also lets me keep that in mind because I'm not always going to remember people NPCs genders when they go and talk to people. I do have listed notable locations. Memoria is one that I wanted to keep in mind. I don't remember what it was, but Memoria, actually I do remember what it was because it's Memoria, it's memory, but it is essentially one of the biggest libraries in the country, in the continent. I'm just going to write it down there. Biggest library. Other than that, like that was just Capernite, really. Federation of Eves, I have listed down here that they're fish and sea mammals and birds. Their environment's islands. They recently had a civil war. They were seceding from the Selecha country. And I hope, I didn't see in the manuscript, but I could really use a pronunciation guide for some of this. Oradonia is probably my favorite country to say. It just sort of flows easily. Envisi? I'm not sure. Bird, lizard, fish people. Now, I did say jungle and swamp for the environment, but these countries, as far as I know, can be very different. Like right now, I'm just trying to get an idea for the world so I have something that I can build as a baseline for my players. But as far as it goes right now, I'm not certain where I will end up. I just kind of want to know the basics before I get into things. So Invis is an open war with Vitrumurian. In any case, something that I found out like reading through in the technology section was that there used to be a train that existed between the two countries, or two nations, but when the Vitrumurians blew up a mountain, they kind of also stopped the trains from working. It it was probably a tactical decision, honestly. But in Vise, I don't have much knowledge of because it was a little bit difficult for me to read. I'm going to have to reread it when I go over that country. Right now, I think my plan is going to be to start with what is the overall plot going to be? Where's the end point that I'm expecting the players to go? We'll get there in a sec. But let's go through some of the other countries just to give you guys an idea. You have Ordonia, which has it separated out that there are fox and rabbit people in the countryside, but bird people in the cities. They do mention a lot of the time that like this, actually, they they are a socialist democracy, but they also have a huge farming culture. They have their capital. They have a president and Congress. They also have a variety of political parties, which are interesting. So you have the people who are like isolationists and the people who are more in power at the time right now. And then you have like a very offshoot third party, as far as I can tell. A lot of what's going on in Ordonia is centered around the Blight. Um, they kind of don't have too many major relationships. They're mostly allied with everyone or have like a terse relationship with people. Mainly because they're traders. They send food to other countries, but the blight is currently affecting that. There are a few countries that are like don't necessarily have a war with Ordonia, but are like kind of at odds with them, like through like a proxy battle, kind of. Because Ordonia and the Federation of Eves are good trade partners, which means Salice is probably not happy with Ordonia. But if you look down here, Salice is actually accepting refugees from Ordonia, even though they. It's kind of the situation of when you're taking in refugees from another country. There's definitely going to be tension from there because there's this sort of xenophobia that even in the most progressive countries there is always like some small faction of xenophobia that's trying to like keep people out. In any case, Ordonia is one of my favorite ones. It was actually the setting of the Ashcan, so if you wanted to check that out, you can check that out in the Ashcan. I think it's $5 on DriveThruRPG. And if you are unfamiliar with Ashcans, it is at this moment. I I will mention that the Curseborn Ashcan is also up and ready on DriveThruRPG. I'll just post the link here, and make sure I have that all set up. I really enjoyed the Ashcan of At the Gates, and this is probably the first. This is probably the first manuscript. If you don't have the manuscript already, the Ashcan is a good way of dipping your toe in because it gives you like sort of, as they say, as the developers say, a vertical slice of the game. And right now, I don't believe At the Gates is open for pre-order just yet, but keep your eye out on the Onyx Path socials because when it does go up for pre-order, you'll be able to grab it and then get the manuscript, which is awesome. Curseborn Ashcan is also posted here. That is the urban horror game that Onyx Path is currently putting out. I was really excited when they put out the Ashcan. I am going to be playing it in a couple of days, but on stream. It's going to be a personal game because I want to get the mechanics figured out and a little bit of better understanding of how the game works. At the Gates, definitely, though, check out that Ashcan as well if you haven't gotten the manuscript like I do. In any case, so we did Ordonia. Salice is related to the Federation of Eves. The Federation of Eves separated from Salice, and I spelled it wrong. A lot of fantasy world names. The environment, I don't really have what the environment's like when I was looking through the book. I'm gonna have to get a little bit more detail on it because they do have some islands that are part of the Federation of Eves that are still under their control, but they also have a mainland. So, and that's where Salinas, their capital is, and their capital they've got a council regent. I don't know why I also put this here, but there's constant talk of pearls. Like pearls are their biggest like export probably or something. There is even talk in some of the book about how they are trying to get back from the Federation of Eves a particular island because that island is where they produce all their purple dye. In any case, I don't know much about their demonic research. Uh, Palpidium, which sounds like a mineral, is the next one. It has moles and crystals. This is the first time I saw that it's not just animal features. I wrote down animal features here, being like, "Oh yeah, they've got animal features in Gaia." No, the animal features are not the only thing that you can get. You can also get these mutations that are kind of crystal-like, and the leader is this Queen Leica of House Sapphire, and all I can imagine is that she's got like sapphire stones coming out of her forehead or around her face. So probably in a like maybe it's like a beard or something that she has to get it chiseled into a beautiful like shape, or else like it'll just grow wildly or something. In any case, they're a more mountainous region, similar to the Capernites up here, but their whole thing is about science. They're more scientifically based than the other countries. They do have mages and magic users, but they're much more about the technology. And this is where, if you look through some of the book, I did a Control F for airships because I love airships, and they do get mentioned as a technology that exists, but they don't get talked about as far as like how prevalent they are. I don't think you would see dozens of airships flying every day. I think most countries probably have at most a couple of airships. Um, Palpidium, I would say, probably has somewhere under a dozen. They are neutral to most other countries, so I don't really have much about them. But the interesting thing about their demonic research is that it's banned. They are not summoning daemons uh, for fighting or anything like that. But there are unsanctioned magicians who are researching this. Technology, from what I gather, seems to be a combination of like technology and magic. So Magitech. Um, One of the descriptors of it in the book or in the manuscript is essentially that like some of the earliest devices were like summoning, like having a spirit or some sort of like magical entity wrapped around a copper coil or something to cause it to heat up so that it would create steam. So that was an interesting thing. Vitrumaria is actually going to be the one country that I know is going to be in my campaign. In particular, the whole thing about them is that they were the people who had uh, the first demon to be known to be summoned. And I didn't put it down here, but there is a totalitarian regime by a President Hollister. And President Hollister is going to be probably the main antagonist of my game. I did talk to Danielle in an interview on my YouTube channel where we discussed essentially like what is the best way to get into At the Gates and what are some of the lore bits that people should know about. And she did mention that there is sort of a bunch of potential big bad evil guys for players to go up against. And I feel like President Hollister is probably one of those people that I would probably throw at my players. In particular, I really like the idea of the first summoner as well, Psoriasis Briarborn, and her demon Sakala the Dustbringer. And if I look up, I should have looked it up earlier because we did get a manuscript with we did get a manuscript with a bunch of characters, and I wonder if the Duskbringer is in that for like the antagonist section. Essentially, what we got were a list of like the sovereign uh, demons. So the sovereigns are like the biggest demons that you can have that are. Oh, yeah, it is one of them. Okay, let me read this out. The earth trembles. 12 large monoliths free themselves from the ground, floating at equal distance in the sky, rotating with slow yet inexorable rhythm. The unearthed dirt coalesces in front of a circular structure, taking the shape of an ornate gold mask. The object trembles until two teal abysses open as its eyes. Sands pour from the mask, turning into a ephemeral robe of an indistinct entity, hidden save for their 6 arms, each shifting from the slender frail to the robust and mighty in a blink of an eye. The sandstorm surrounds them, darting at absurd speed one moment and freezing midair the next, yet the sand never ceases pouring as their hands compose gestures beyond mortals' ken. The figure unleashes devastation upon the world, shattering earth, sky, and time. That is the Sakala Dustbringer. And honestly, I think if you are familiar with the backer kit, I have to look this up. So if you go to the backer kit page for At the Gates, um, oh, that's the landing page. I need to go to the actual At the Gates project. So if I were to toss this into this tab here, you should be able to see this. We have some artwork. Yeah, you guys can see it now. So you have the artwork of the Capper Knights, but if you scroll all the way down here, this is what I think is the Dustbringer. It seems like it sounds very similar in how they describe it. In any case, um, I'm excited. I like the art here. You can see this pirate type town here, which could be part of the Federation of Eves. You have a frog person doing some necromancy. That could be anywhere. Um, you have people walking away from a nice tower. There's a stone person here and a woman in a corset. I don't know. But yeah, and then you also have the Capper Knights here. Anyway, I I'm excited. I'm sorry I'm gushing. It's it happens. In any case, so President Hollister is probably going to be my big bad, but maybe akin to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. The big bad doesn't necessarily mean the boss fight. The boss fight is likely going to be Sorosi's Briarborn with her daemon. And I don't have I should have the pronouns for the demon. President Hollister, I believe, is a he, him. Um, I did have right down there. I do have stuff about the void. Areas where the void borders the material plane are called the outlands, and then I mentioned that the major borders are here. I have another part for important landmarks and facts. One of them is the in the Federation of Eves, there is the Well of Creation. That is a major important landmark I'm going to have to do. I'm going to put a lot more here, but additionally from there, this is still using a format I stole from Chris Perkins, his blog post on his advice to create a campaign. You have the character origin examples, race origins, class origins. We don't have races or class origins. We have paths. So I would have something along the lines of the role path. I think it's the roll path. You have the origin path. Origin path origins. Maybe I'll just remove origins at the end. And then I forget if it's a job path that you get in at the gates. Opening up, I believe it is chapter 2, manuscript 2 had the professions, yes. So you have diviner, harrier, mage, warlord, and warrior. And then you have the advanced professions. So it's the you have your heritage path, and then you have heritage path and upbringing path. So heritage path, what was the third one? Third one was profession path. And I like to do them in the headers so that like they're organized a bit better. So if I hit here on the left side, this is using Google Docs. You can see that the you can't see because my screen is too small for you. But I'll just do a small transition here. You can see on the left side I have an outline, and that's just the nature of Google and Microsoft Word to an extent, where if you do the headers, you can have this little outline. I'll leave it there for the moment. If it's not showing up well on the Twitch page, I will remove it. Now you can see it if you have high enough resolution, so I'll leave it for the moment. In any case, so you have the origin paths, you can have special equipment. This is the type of place where I put artifacts or some sort of special item that the players need. And then I have campaign starting point with the plot hooks, character hooks, etc. So these would be samples. Everything here from character origin examples down is just sort of fluff for the it's giving jumping off points for the players to say, this is what I want to do. And I haven't even like structured the campaign itself. So right here I would have the campaign start point, but also I want to make sure I have a campaign outline. I would separate it out using bullet points, or I could separate it out using headers. So I'll use headers for the moment just so that we have this lovely, on the left side, these lovely little outline hyperlinks. So usually I would have like a prologue. And because I am playing Paper Mario right now, I am going to have chapters. So I'm going to have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7. And I don't even know if I'm going to be using all these chapters, but what I will have is an epilogue. And chapter 7, I'm going to also put a dash here and say final chapter, because this is going to be the confrontation of President Hollister. And I'll put a note here that this will be that. I don't know what the players have done to get to this point, but essentially what I like to do is I like to have a variety. I like to know the end point. Hollister could die any number of ways. It doesn't have to be them storming his castle or something. It could be anything that the players come up with. I don't like railroading my players. I will say this 100 times. Even if I do have an idea of where the game will end, that's not necessarily going to be the final point. I will, however, use this as a way of structuring some example encounters. One of the so, and I'm getting ahead of myself. I just want to get the broad strokes here. I want to have at least one chapter in each of the countries. And if I go to the nations, we have Capernite, Eves, Invisi, Bordonia, Selechia, Epitome, and Vitrumaria. Now, I will make sure to put Vitrumaria as a potential spot here. Actually, let's put it down here. Vitrumaria question mark. I'm still not sure where the players are going to start. I have a feeling that because I really like Ordonia, I'll probably have them there. But honestly, I've seen the actual play. I've done an actual play of the Ashcan edition, which link is still in the Twitch description, in Twitch chat right now, if you want to check it out. But I think I was listening to the Onyx Path cast, the podcast, and they had their own At the Gates actual play where they started in the Federation of Eves, which had its own stuff going down. So I could definitely say Oridonia, and then I have Federation of Eves. However, those are two places that we already have seen before, so if I was thinking of this along the lines of a actual play, I say let's play because let's play is the term that they use for video games, and I keep thinking of this as a video game in a way. Capernite could be a good place to start. Another cool place to start would be someplace like Invis, which is currently in war. Invis, I had mentioned it before, but the it's really I haven't really grokked it yet. I haven't really understood it because it has a before and after war section. So before war, it was peaceful and kind of like a little bit in flux. But during the war, it's like everyone's trying to regroup and fight against the invaders. And what was the last country? Okay. So I'm just going to write here why I think I'm going to write some pros and cons. So pro, con. So pro for Ardonia is we get to have a story with the Blight. Blight storyline. Pro, it's kind of a generic. It's not a generic setting. It's kind of a con would be it's a generic fantasy start. But a pro would be something along the lines of a lot to like. There's a lot of like wiggle room with the story. Looking at the manuscript, Ordonia has a lot talking about the various happenings going on in the city, and it does have a lot of conversation about the Blight, but you don't need to focus on that. It seems like there's a lot of wiggle room for me anyway as a creator to go through different areas and talk about them as opposed to being stuck with something like, say, if I were to choose Vitrumaria as the starting point. If I chose Vitrumaria as the starting point, immediately Hollister is the antagonist, unless the players are working for him. And in which case, we know that the plot is going to revolve around war. Right now, Ordonia isn't at war. It's there's threats of war and things of that nature, but they're kind of just in crisis, but not in a full-blown, like, crisis is a very strong word. I don't know a word that's stronger than crisis right now. But in any case, as we keep going here, the Federation of Eves, pros for that. Oh, Another con for Ordonia is just I've done it before, even if it was for the Ashcan. Pro for the start being a Federation of Eves. It is a series of islands, so there's a lot of wiggle room there. Pro pirates. Players can be pirates. They could be going up against pirates. I just like pirates. Con. Uh, Onyx Path has already done it as part of their Onyx Path cast. Oop. I messed up my thing. Double checking that everything's back to normal. Yep. So Onyx Path did it. Another con is I can't really think of another con right now. Let's move on to Capper Knights. Capper Knights Pro, very Skyrim-y. You can definitely do warriors, warrior mercenary. Con, it's just it feels very one note. And as far as the wiggle room goes, there actually is a lot of wiggle room. I could probably do a Capper Knight campaign where they are going to other war zones to fight. But what I really want is a diverse group of characters from different nations, because that gives you plot hooks at every single location. So you can say, oh, we have a Capper Knight warrior here. Well, they have the plot they have a spotlight on them when we go to Capper Knight, because it makes sense that they would have family there or some sort of relationship with someone there that needs to be talked about or spotlit on. A good place, there are a lot of good places for that to start, and I think I know where I'm headed, but we'll keep going. And VC, Pro, in the middle of war. Pro again. I don't really have another pro. Con is that not a lot of wiggle room. Also, if we start in NVCs, they are going to immediately go to attack President Hollister because he is the threat to NVC. Speeds up President Hollister a lot. And this is specific to my campaign. It might be different for yours. Perhaps President Hollister isn't going to be your big bad. It could be that for your big bad, you want there to be a threat coming from the void. And maybe that threat is influencing various political leaders throughout the world. President Hollister is just the first person you encounter that was being influenced by this creature, and then you find out, oh, the Queen of Talpidium is the one that's going to have to deal with that. Or the Queen of Talpidium is the actual villain because she's actually a demon or something like that. These are not secrets, campaign secrets, or anything like that. These are just my spitballing here. Like, this isn't a secret. This isn't a at the gates secret. This is a secret I'm making up on the spot. All these are my opinion. I probably should have led with that because I only have 3 minutes left here. In any case, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of using Salicha as a starting off point. The pro for Salicha is honestly, I have no idea. I'm just gonna type that down. No idea. I have no idea what to do with it. I don't know any pros at the moment. The con is they seem to be the villains. At least in their own story, they seem to be the villains. Uh, in as I said before, the Federation of Eves left them. Like they there was they seceded from Salicha, so it makes sense that if I wanted the Federation of Eves to be sympathetic, Salicha would be the antagonist. However, we could go a little bit, could reverse it and have it be that Salicha is actually the good guys in this regard, and that the Federation of Eves are mostly pirates and stuff like that who are trying to secede or tried to secede and successfully seceded in order to gain control of the Well of Creation. Now that does sort of overwrite some of the lore we already have for the Federation of Eves, but it is a way to go if you want to have a different take on the story than your typical rebels versus the big bad evil guy, evil empire. But I'm not going to do that. In fact, I think my main country I want to cover is Talpidium. The pro, it's a neutral country, which means a lot of my players can come from multiple areas. It also allows access to airships. And it pro also is it's banned demon summoning, which means my players won't have access to demons right away. The con is actually pro because of the ban. Coming back here could lead to interesting plot. So there are a lot of games, and particular video games, where when you leave when you leave the starting location, when you come back, the starting location is going through strife. Typically, the games that I can think of that do this is specifically the Fallout 3 game, just because that's the most recent one I played. Essentially, in Fallout 3, you're in Vault 101, and when your father leaves, the entire vault goes into chaos, and martial law is essentially established. And it's not until I think it's the last third of the game that you get a distress call from Vault 101. And when you go back there, you can see the aftermath of having left. So Talpidium might be a good starting location as a place where the players have access to an airship. They're sent off on a mission, but they start hearing rumblings that Talpidium is going to be the next place to be invaded by another country, or maybe even that the secret demon summoning group has built up enough power to usurp the queen or kidnap her or imprison her or something. It is definitely something to think about. It is probably where I'll be going, but I do like having these notes on my prologue because I can look back at it and see and add to it or remove the cons. Next up, I think I'm going to actually flesh out the prologue for Talpidium, and I'll just put. So we have the prologues. initial location discussion there. And this way I can separate out my thoughts. Cons, none. I've already decided. But for my prologue for next week when I run this, and it's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern time, like normal. Like normal as if this isn't the first episode and I haven't been doing it weekly, but I will be doing this weekly. So we're going to have initial plot, or not initial plot, tutorial level, or introductory story. So there. That'll be where we leave off next week, so I'll just make it next time. And we can have a good discussion about what I can do. I might put some polls into the Twitch chat if you wish to participate. This is what I'm calling second screen content. So if you want to do some chores or do some work while listening to this, feel free. I will not take it to heart that you aren't putting your attention 100% on me. But I'd like to thank you for joining me for this. I had a fun time doing this, and I'm really excited to see where this campaign planning goes. Thank you so much for watching, and remember the links to the ash cans. I'll post them. I can post them back in here, but there's the At the Gates ash can and the Curseborn ash can, which are kind of like vertical slices or previews that you can check out. And I did run the At the Gates ash can, and if you want, I will drop the YouTube link in there as well. Excuse me. And if I'm smart, I'll have Travis toss it. I'll have Travis toss it in the description on YouTube. So yes, if you want to check out At the Gates Ashcan actual play that I did, the link's in here. I am going to sign off, and I'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat place. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.